Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And our Rockies have been playing much better baseball here in the month of July. Unfortunately, we had not been playing good baseball for most of the season, so despite a strong July, our record is only 50 and 48 as we head into the All-Star game. Positively, we have closed the gap on the Diamondbacks in the NL West to just 3 games, and we're also only 3 games out of a wild card spot as we sit here on July 18th. A lot of individual players having success, as we talked about at the end of last episode. 8 of our players were named All-Stars this year, which I think is as many as we've ever had in this Rockies playthrough. Definitely the most we've had in this Rockies playthrough, and I can't think of too many other teams that I've had over the years who have had more than 8 All-Stars in a season. And honestly, typically, if you're going to have 8 All-Stars on the team, probably would expect that the record is better than 50 and 48. But unfortunately, the record is what it is at this point, and we will look to improve going forward. 2 notes wanted to check in before we move forward. Did make a trade, and it is a pure rental for us, but the bullpen, despite us making 3 trades last off season that we thought would help really improve the bullpen, has not been as good as we would have hoped. We're hoping this one helps. Brought on the now veteran reliever Joely Garcia from the Detroit Tigers. He is in the final year of a contract, and it's a pure rental for us. He's put up a 3.64 ERA for them in 42 innings this year. Over the course of his major league career, he's got a 126 ERA plus and an 87 FIP minus. So he has been a good, solid right-handed pitcher, and he's also a player with pretty good stamina. So hopefully he will help us stabilize the bullpen a bit further with a proven major league reliever. Had to give up 3 players to make it happen. You may recall Ryan Featherston, a guy who has been up and down with the team over the past few years. He spent this entire year in AAA Albuquerque with us. He's had decent success at the major league level in parts of 2 seasons with us, put up a 121 ERA plus and a 95 FIP minus. He's younger than Garcia, making much less money. So kind of understand why a rebuilding team like Detroit might be interested in him since he's under control. But as I mentioned, he wasn't even on our major league team at this point. And he does tend to walk a lot of batters, which I don't love. So we were willing to include him in the trade. Also had to include a couple of prospects. 25-year-old minor league reliever Jim Bomer is a guy we drafted a few years ago, having a really good year with a 1.47 ERA and high A ball, but we've had him kind of trapped in high A for the last few years, hasn't looked quite ready for double A, and he's 25 years old, certainly has a profile that indicates he could be a useful left-handed arm down the line, but his stuff is not particularly impressive, doesn't have a lot of stamina, doesn't throw incredibly hard, and given that he is already over 25 years old, don't necessarily think he's going to reach his full potential. Also had to include in a minor leaguer Tomas Lopez, another potential reliever, low stamina player. He is a guy who was a IAFA signing of ours a few years ago, making his debut in professional baseball this year. He's put up a 6.75 ERA in rookie ball. If he develops fully, looks like he could be a useful-ish major league reliever, but with Bamer, Lopez, and Featherston going to the Tigers for Garcia, felt that we certainly have the better arm for this year, even though it is conceivable that at least one in the case of Featherston and possibly 2 or 3 of those other players that we included will ultimately be useful major leaguers down the line. don't see any of them being difference makers, and the hope is that by extending the strength of our bullpen even further with Garcia on board, we get a difference maker for the next 2.5 months. We'll continue to investigate the trade market, but with us playing better of late, not sure that we're going to go too crazy with additional deals. And I did mention that we had 8 All-Stars this year. I did get a question from DLL First Base 14. Kevin Roberts, our defending National League most valuable player, having a very strong year for us with a 4.5 WAR, but not named a starter in the outfield this year. And the starting left fielder is Jeremy Coate. Ted Miller, who's listed as a lefty for us, is the starting DH for the game. DLL First Base 14 was just wondering exactly what Coate looked like to be having a monster 5.7 WAR just past the midway point of the season, an even better year than Roberts. And Coate, 25-year-old, won a batting title a year ago with a .322 average, has been a consistent well above 300 hitter in his year in 135 days in the majors at this point. He is a 16th round pick out of Georgia State from the 2029 draft, who, according to our scout, has progressed very significantly from what we thought he might be when he was being drafted. And given that he went in the 16th round, we certainly weren't the only ones who didn't have that high opinion of him. But Coate with well above average contact and home run power, really good speed, hitting .351 this year with 30 doubles and 15 home runs here on July 18th. Scored 62 runs, drove in 60, OPS close to 1,000. He's also got pretty good range in the outfield, although he doesn't always handle the balls that he gets his glove to, and he doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but certainly a monster offensive season for Coate so far to end up as the starting left fielder for the National League in the All-Star game over our outstanding youngster, Kevin Roberts Jr. And as we sit here on July 18th, the team is relatively healthy. Luke Little day-to-day with a mild oblique strain, but given that we are at the All-Star break, he'll have plenty of time to heal up now. Dave Seibrecht, another lefty reliever, out for the rest of the year. If you're wondering, when we brought Featherston on, or when we traded Featherston away for Garcia, we also sent Bill Douglas down. He's a reliever who's been with us off and on for the past couple of years, who's not having a particularly productive year this season. A guy who still had options, so he's back down in AAA, and hoping that, as we've talked about, the addition of Garcia will help improve our bullpen. Taking a look at the rest of this month as we prepare for the All-Star break and then eventually the trade deadline, which is now less than 2 weeks away. Had that outstanding homestand against Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Texas, where we went a combined 9-1 over those 10 games. We'll have 3 games in Texas and then 2 games in Los Angeles against the Angels before we're home for 4 against the Cubs and get to the trade deadline and the end of this month. And we don't normally spend too much time talking about what happens in the Home Run Challenge or even in the All-Star game, but did find it interesting to note that good old Arson Judge, who the Yankees let sign a 3-year contract at $62 million a year last year with the division rival Boston Red Sox, just won the Home Run Challenge at the age of 41. The veteran hitting only .244 this year, but still has an OPS of 800, 26 homers and 64 ribbies in 352 at-bats. And Judge now with 677 career home runs. very outside chance of getting to 700 this year. He is still signed with a vesting option for $62 million for next year. So conceivable if he decides not to retire that he could get over 700 next year. And very realistically, if he has a good finish to this season and a solid year next year, if he can stay healthy, that perhaps only Barry Bonds and Hank Aaron will have more home runs than Aaron Judge by late 2034. And we won our first series coming out of the All-Star break, taking 2 out of 3 in Texas against the Rangers, although we did lose the final game of the series going for the sweep. The Diamondbacks have won 4 in a row at this point, so we've fallen 4 games behind them in the division, still 3 out of the final wild card spot. So we definitely have some work to do, but feeling like with the way this team is playing in July and the fact that the addition of Garcia and Roman Anthony from an episode or 2 ago has bolstered our lineup a little bit, that maybe we don't need to make a very dramatic additional change to hopefully still have this team well positioned for the playoffs. As we sit here on July 25th, Gus Nieves with 34 homers and 81 ribbies is on pace to potentially leading the National League in both home runs and ribbies for the 4th time in his 6-year career. Kevin Roberts Jr., 3rd in the league in batter war behind the aforementioned Mr. Coate, as well as Michael Harris II, and Noah Schultz, 3rd in the league in pitcher war here on July 25th. And we split our 2 games in Los Angeles against the Angels, so back at home now for 4 games against the Cubs. Continue to unfortunately slide a little further behind in the division, 4.5 behind the Diamondbacks, a couple games behind the Dodgers, 2.5 out of the final wild card spot in the National League. Nieves has actually gotten passed by Michael Harris II in the Ribby race, but obviously a lot of time left to play this season. Quick look at team statistics as we think about whether we need to do anything else. Our 53-50 record is 6 games below Pythagorean expectations. As we've talked about, after a very tepid start to the season, including an awful month of May, the team has been outstanding here in July with a 16-5 record, continue to have one of the top offenses in the National League, 1st, 2nd, or 3rd in most of the offensive categories. Runs allowed, still a middle-of-the-pack team, 9th in terms of our pitching in terms of runs allowed, which isn't horrible for a team playing half of its games in Colorado, but honestly, we've gotten really used to this pitching staff being good to very good over the past several years, so kind of disappointing to see us ranked that low, given that we are returning most of our pitchers from last year as far as the starting rotation, and as I mentioned, we felt like we bolstered the bullpen this past offseason. And as we sit here on July 28th, I've definitely spent some time looking at the players who are available on the trade block and also kind of trying to search for some other guys who could be impactful for us. And honestly, I don't think there's anything more interesting for us to do than the addition of Roman Anthony from a while back, and then the relatively recent addition of Mr. Garcia. As we talked about last episode when we looked at some of the minor leaguers in our system, if we think about the catcher position with one of the better prospects in our organization who we picked up in the draft several years ago, Mike Girard, he's not too far from the majors. If we think about infield, Derby Mahez, not too far from the majors. If we think about our pitching staff, Bernie Barrera, not too far from the majors. I think it's inevitable we're going to suffer some type of injury in early August after we decide not to do anything else at the trade deadline. But I think there's guys in AAA who will be able to help us if needs emerge. And as I said, the prices for some of the guys who are available are just too high at this point for the type of impact that I think those players would have. So things may change if we have a huge injury over these next few days while we're at home against Chicago. But otherwise, I think it's going to be a relatively quiet next few days for us before the trade deadline. And although we got crushed in the first game at home against Chicago, we have taken 2 in a row since then. So heading into the final game of the series as we get near the trade deadline, 4.5 behind in the division, only half a game behind the Dodgers at this point, and 2 out of a wild card spot. Nieves back on top in terms of homers and ribbies. Kevin Roberts Jr. now 3rd in the league in both OPS and batter WAR. Noah Schultz remains 3rd in the league in pitcher WAR. Just had a monster game in the 6-4 victory for Kevin Roberts Jr. 3 home runs for us, drove in 5 of the 6 runs, and obviously those 3 hits were all homers, so he scored 3 runs as well. Has the batting average up to .298 this year with 26 homers and 65 ribbies, scored 74 runs, so he is having another really outstanding season after his MVP award a season ago. And we did end up making no additional trades as we passed the trade deadline. We also did end up winning the final game against the Cubs to take 3 of 4. So certainly feeling better at the start of August than we were at the beginning of July. Outstanding month for us, 3.5 behind in the division, only a game and a half out of the wild card. And when we take a look at the team statistics, a very strong 19-6 record in the month of July, although as we begin August, we are not in a playoff spot. If we continue to play the way that we did in July, certainly would think that we'll end up in the playoffs for an 8th straight year with this Rockies franchise when all is said and done. But it's a matter of executing on the field at this point. And hopefully we'll be able to keep our recent strong momentum going here in the month of August. Got a couple games on the road in the division at San Francisco, and then 4 on the road against San Diego. We'll follow that up with a 6-game homestand, a couple against the Mariners, and then 4 against the Cardinals before we get to the middle of the month, and a potentially very important 10-game road trip, which will be started off with 3 games against the division-leading Arizona Diamondbacks. And we split our 2 games against San Francisco, as we've talked about previously in earlier this season. Our fan interest has unfortunately been regressing, gone all the way down to 82. Kind of get that to some extent given how poorly we were playing in the early stages of the season. But as I mentioned, we have made the playoffs 7 years in a row at this point, and we're still mired in pathetic fan loyalty, which is a bit disappointing. But we do have an opportunity to potentially improve on that, although we're targeted to lose some money this year with the significant reduction in revenue driven by our declining fan interest. But the franchise, Kevin Roberts Jr., wants us to think about helping the community. So we are going to go ahead and start a charity. I think it's the second time in this series we've had that opportunity. But when the franchise, who is signed to a very long and potentially lucrative contract for another decade at this point comes to us off of an MVP season and in the midst of another fantastic season. We're going to do everything possible to make him happy. And although spending this money probably means that we are going to lose a lot of money for ownership this year, barring a long run in the playoffs, which an appearance in the playoffs still isn't guaranteed at this point. Hopefully that interaction with the community will help us not only perhaps improve fan interest, but maybe it'll even help us make a step in the direction this offseason of getting off of that pathetic fan loyalty we've had since 2025, unfortunately. And with the investment we made in the charity, the good news is we've gotten a boost of fan interest up to 89, although to be fair, it's not even where we were at the end of last season. But you can see going to not let us have any financial flexibility at all, minus $13 million in money available, with the fact that we did make that, I believe, $16 million investment in the broader organization. Yep, it's still $16 million in that other miscellaneous expense, but did give us a 7-point boost to fan interest. We'll see at the end of the year whether we do anything with that fan loyalty. Taking a look at these first several series, we split with San Francisco, as you know. We split on the road with San Diego. We split at home with Seattle. But fortunately, after that, we took 4 in a row against St. Louis at home. So big 3-game series coming up against the Diamondbacks. We have moved into second place with those 4 straight wins. The Dodgers now 6.5 back. And we are sitting in the final wild card spot if the season were to end today, game and a half clear of both the Brewers and the Reds. So those 4 wins in a row finally have us, for the first time in quite some time, set up to be a playoff team if the season were to end today. Nieves, with some round numbers, 40 homers and 100 ribbies as we sit here on August 15th, continuing to lead the league in both categories. Kevin Roberts Jr. still third in the league in OPS. Noah Schultz now leading the league in pitcher WAR, and he is second in the league in strikeouts. So playing solid baseball, and although we are going onto the road for these big games against Arizona, certainly would love to take at least 2 out of 3 in the desert. And things went as good as we could have possibly hoped against Arizona. Swept the 3-game series on the road to extend our winning streak to 7 games. More importantly than that, we closed the gap in the division now to just 1 game, and we are 3.5 games clear of the Reds in the battle for the final wild card spot. So certainly feel like things have turned in a positive direction for our Rockies. We've got a quest to win another division title, which would be our 4th in a row, only a game behind now. Think it will be difficult to have the best record in baseball for a 4th consecutive year at this point. That belongs to the Nationals at 74 and 46. So they're 8 games clear of us in that race, and given that we're on August 18th at this point, might be a little ambitious to make up 8 games on them. But if we continue with an 8-2 record over 10 games, we could make up some ground on even them in the coming weeks. And although we did extend the winning streak to 8 games, we lost the final 2 games of the series to drop the series in Milwaukee to the Brewers. That being said, it's still been a 4-2 road trip thus far. Got 4 left in Atlanta before we finish off the month at home against the Astros and the Padres and get to September roster expansion, which is where we'll finish off this episode. Unfortunately, we've lost 2 out of 3 now to Atlanta. Still only 2 games behind the Diamondbacks, who also haven't been great since we swept them. But with a now 2-4 record since we swept that series, we have dropped a game to them in the standings. Finally, as expected, an injury issue, not crippling, but the young DH Ted Miller going to be out with a sprained ankle for about 3 weeks. He was named to his first All-Star team this year, hitting 276, 21 homers, and 65 ribbies through his first 391 at-bats of the year. Should have him back for the stretch run, but a guy has put up a 139 WRC plus for us this year, so certainly we'll miss having him in the lineup against right-handed pitching for the foreseeable future. And with the injury to Mr. Miller, we brought back Dean West. Has not hit well for us. He's been better in AAA Albuquerque, as you'd expect, but we are going to make the now veteran outfielder our everyday center fielder. That'll allow us to move Gus Nieves to DH against everybody, and Kevin Roberts will move to right field against left-handed pitching. Roman Anthony will move to right field against right-handed pitching. Should ultimately limit wear and tear on some of our outfielders a bit. Let West play for the next few weeks, see if he can perhaps rejuvenate his potential to be a part of our medium-term plans, which is very borderline at this point. Not that we needed to bring up an infielder, but if you're wondering what's going on with Derby Mahez, he unfortunately a couple days ago suffered a sprained knee that's going to keep him out 5 to 6 weeks, so his season is likely over. I guess in theory we could call him up the final week of the season or so. He was very unproductive, 4 for 30 when we had him in the majors this year, and unfortunately, due to multiple injuries, he's played only 57 games for us in AAA this year. 271 average, only 3 homers and 29 ribbies for Mahez, 89 WRC plus. Our concern about him is he's developed has been his bat and has not really done anything this year in AAA or the majors to make us feel less frightened about what his bat might become. That said, with some potential departures this upcoming offseason, hard to imagine that he won't be a relatively important infielder for us next year. Like the glove, like the speed, like the influence in the clubhouse, but definitely worried about the bat, and it's taken the 2030 first round pick out of UCLA a lot longer to become a true major leaguer than we've hoped, with his struggles at developing offensively, and he's also becoming a bit injury prone, particularly this season. After we ended up losing 3 out of 4 on the road against the Braves, we did take the first 2 games against Houston. Unfortunately, we're rained out yesterday. Got 3 against San Diego before we get to the end of the month and September roster expansion. Just a game behind the Diamondbacks, and we are still 3 clear in the wild card race. So hopefully can have a good series against the last place Padres here. With 51 wins, they are the second worst team in the majors, better than only the Houston Astros. If you're looking closely, you can see that Nieves continues to lead the league in homers and ribbies. Kevin Roberts Jr. now leading the league in slugging percentage, third in batter WAR, and Noah Schultz continues to lead the league in pitcher WAR, and second in strikeouts, has already topped 200 for the year here in late August. And a very nice finish to the month of August, sweeping San Diego. We scored a total of 30 runs in the 3-game sweep, allowing 12, so a pretty dominant performance. And as September begins, the record has improved to 74-60, and after that very slow start to the season, our disappointing Rockies are just barely back into our rightful place as leaders in the National League West with a 74-60 record, now half a game up on the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks are 3 clear in the wild card race, so feeling pretty confident with the way this team is playing of late that if we remain healthy, we will end up back in the playoffs. Nieves looks very well positioned to lead the league in homers and ribbies. Kevin Roberts, good chance to lead the league in OPS, and honestly is a decent chance to lead the league in batter WAR, only 1/10 of a win behind Coate and Harris the second at this point after a strong performance by him. Schultz certainly could lead the league in pitcher WAR, and he's third in the league in strikeouts at this point. So another very good month in the books for our Rockies in August. 18-9 record. 74 wins is still 5 below Pythagorean expectations. Best offense in the National League in terms of runs scored, and first or second in the vast majority of offensive categories. We've improved to 8th in the league in runs allowed. The bullpen getting a little better. The starters haven't been great of late, but with an 18-9 record for the month, we're certainly not going to complain too much. Definitely seems like that awful 8-20 record in May was an aberration, and it also seems like a real long time ago after a 37-15 record over these last 2 months. And with that, we'll call it an episode. Next time around, we will talk about our September call-ups after we've made those decisions. Hopefully, we'll be getting Ted Miller back in the not-too-distant future. And hopefully, we can keep this team healthy and ultimately guide the team to an 8th straight playoff appearance and hopefully a 4th consecutive division title. The best record in baseball is now actually out in the East still, but in the AL East rather than the NL East, where Tampa Bay at 83-51 has gotten by the Nationals in the standings. So we are 10 games, or 9 games, sorry, if I could do some simple math in my head, 9 games behind Tampa in the race for the best record in baseball. Unlikely that we're going to be able to make up that gap. And even as we think about the Nationals, they're 7.5 ahead of us in the standings for the best record in the National League, which would also be tough for us to do, but you never know. And we'll find out what happens in September next time around. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.